veterans are individuals that the general public tends to trust. And so the more the public sees, okay, we have veterans out here that are leading the way with this Bitcoin thing. Okay, and well, we know we can trust them. They're probably good people. And there's that natural tendency, that nature that we have to want to trust them. And so for us to be sharing that message is going to increase the rate of adoption. It's going to open the minds of individuals to trusting the messengers, and then thereby being more apt to trust Bitcoin in general.
Are you or your loved ones looking to secure and manage your Bitcoin with confidence? The Bitcoin Advisor is your premier destination for professional Bitcoin management, helping you buy, secure, and manage your Bitcoin so you can own intergenerational wealth and sleep easy. With a reputation built on unparalleled security, strategic planning, and comprehensive client education, the Bitcoin Advisor team have managed over $1 billion in assets without losing a single Satoshi since 2016. Whether you're new to Bitcoin or a seasoned investor, the Bitcoin Advisor team are there to guide you every step of the way. So please click on the link below to organize yourself a consultation and include the name Carrie, C-A-R-R-I, in the referral code so that they know that I've sent you their way.
Hello and a gorgeous welcome to Gabe Lord, who is founder of Operation Bitcoin. And I'm a big fan of your work, Gabe. So welcome aboard to Bitcoin People.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me today.
It's lovely to have you here. I came across you through Scott Lindbergh, and there seems to be a bit of a network of veterans in this space. I've had Preston Pish on the show. I've had George Bodine, and we talked about some of his time in the Army as well. And so what I like to do, if I can, as I invariably do, is get a little bit of your personal story and your personal background, even right back to a little bit about your upbringing, what led you to the Army, and then a bit about, let's get into your time in the Army and your experiences there.
Sure. Excellent. Great. Thank you. All right. Well, again, it's a thrill to be here. I appreciate you making a spot for me to come on in and talk with you today. So, I was born into a military family. My father was in the Navy. He joined as an enlisted guy way back in the day, and then worked his way up through the ranks and ended up retiring as an officer. I was born in San Diego, California, and then did what all military families do. And we moved around quite a bit until my father ended up finally retiring after 24 years in the Navy. And finished up going to high school in the Southeast, which is where I spent a lot of time, Southeast U.S. And joining the military for me was not an option coming out of high school. It was not going to be a reality. And I did speak with the recruiters and just said, nope, not my thing. So for 10 years after high school, I just kind of floated around, did a little bit of college, ended up going into business, starting up an internet gaming center actually in 99. That's 1999, back in the 1900s. And started up an internet gaming center with a friend who was actually who was a Marine. And so began to realize that, okay, guys my age can actually be in the military and be okay. And, it's a realistic option. At that time, it still wasn't going to be for me. I thought he was a great guy. It wasn't my thing. However, ended up reconsidering things after the attacks of 9/11. As many people did, began to kind of reconsider my perspective on things and my involvement in different areas of life in general, really, and what I was doing. At the time, I was working in real estate, and really just, came to the conclusion that the war that was getting ready to pop off overseas was something that I felt like I needed to be a part of. I was 27 years old at the time. I was not a spring chicken anymore by military terms. That's pretty old. And so I was really at the end of that road. If it was ever going to be an option, I had to do it then. I had started a family, had 2 daughters at the time, and really just, looked at them and said, okay, what do I want them to think about me as they grow up? What kind of an example of service am I setting for them, knowing that this big historical event is taking place? So I ended up going and joining the Army. So I went. I thought that maybe I could go in and make a difference. I entered as a 92 Alpha, which is an automated logistics specialist. And I thought, okay, I'll go in here and they'll send me overseas and I'll do a bunch of Army stuff. And, we'll win this war and we're going to save humanity from evil. And so it happened, except for the saving humanity from evil. But I did go overseas, spent a year in Iraq, and did all the Iraq stuff that you imagine. I was not combat armed, so I wasn't kicking in doors. I was more of a supportive role. And however, it was not without its moments of excitement and memories. But upon returning, I decided that I wanted to train people full time. When I became a non-commissioned officer, a sergeant, I was one of the main responsibilities of a sergeant is to train their soldiers, and so that's when I began to learn how to train people and to invest in the growth of other people. And that's something that I quickly realized I really, really enjoyed doing. And I realized very quickly the impact that you can have on other individuals when you take the time to invest in them and then to watch them reach their potential. It was just a very rewarding experience for me. So when we came back from Iraq, I requested orders to be a full-time trainer because that's all that I wanted to do. I was bitten by that training bug, and all I wanted to do is train soldiers and make them better at what they do. And so, excuse me, so I went to the training course and I learned how to be a trainer and I got all the certifications and I was ready to go train people all the time. And instead, as I was waiting my orders to go in and to do that, the U.S. Army Recruiting Command decided that they wanted me to be a recruiter instead. So they sent me orders to go and recruit civilians and turn them into soldiers. And I said, no, you've made a mistake. I'm going to train people. I'm not going to recruit them because, recruiters are jerks and they lie to everybody and they're awful human beings. And I'm not, that's not me. I'm not going to do it. So they thought that was pretty funny. And so then, long story short, I ended up going to recruiting training. And then I was sent to Georgia, where I had never lived, to recruit people for a minimum of 3 years. So I did that. And it was during that time, especially, that I really began to have more difficulty with navigating through and justifying being a part of that agenda that was taking place and that was unfolding through the military as an extension of the government. And it just hit me a little bit differently as I enlisted more and more people into the military, knowing more and more and not being able to deny anymore at all that it was just not something that I could stand behind. And so I'm just going to leave it at that. Now, I mean, I will say that I was very forthcoming and I was very honest with every person that I enlisted into the military. And my first year of recruiting was horrible. My boss did not like me at all because I didn't play the usual recruiting game of telling them one thing and then just doing something else. I wasn't going to do that. I made a commitment to myself and I made a commitment to any person that I was going to talk to that I was going to be honest with them, even if nobody joined, because that's just how it was going to be. People's lives people are essentially giving up their lives. They're putting everything on pause and putting themselves in danger for that. And I wasn't going to lie to them. So I didn't. So the first year I couldn't get anybody to join because they all wanted me to tell them the story. Parents would bring their kids in and they would say, hey, I'll send my son into the Army, but only if you can promise me he's not going to go to combat. And so my response always was, if your son joins the Army, sir or ma'am, he's going into combat. And there's a very real possibility that he may be injured or he may die. And either way, he won't be the same when he takes off the uniform for the last time. So the first year was pretty tough, but then the word started to get around that I was an honest recruiter, and people started to come to me that wanted to join for the reasons of service. They felt a duty and an obligation to do something and be a part of something bigger than themselves. And so I was able to get a good number of them enlisted into the military, which I was able to tolerate, knowing that they were positioned to go make an improvement on a system that is extremely flawed and run by a system that is even more flawed. But at least if I could put some people in there that were going to bring the right type of mindset and bring the right type of attitude, because I believe a military is necessary and we should have good people in there. So it was my goal at that point to put as many of those good people in as I could, especially with them going in there with their eyes wide open and knowing what to expect and understanding the risk of the obligation that they were undertaking and the oath that they were making. So the time came for me to reenlist or to get out. And I decided, due to, in no small part to a lot of the conflicts that were continuing to bubble up around the world, I decided that I just wasn't going to be a part of it anymore. And I did not reenlist. And so got out, and my own transition was probably smoother than many other people's transitions. But it wasn't without its challenges. My first civilian job, I showed up on the first day and I had no idea what was going on. I mean, I was totally out of water. Everybody talked a different language. They looked at me weird because I was speaking a different language. And there was one guy a couple doors down. I was working as a talent acquisition consultant. And there was one guy a couple doors down who was actually a training guy, who was a crusty old retired Navy guy, and he knew that I'd just gotten out of the Army. And his name was Keith Hobson, but he made an effort to come in to talk to me and to go get coffee with me and to sit down and eat lunch and to kind of show me the ropes and to serve as that intermediary, almost that buffer to kind of get me in step and get me where I needed to be, so I could make that change. That, I mean, it's really it's an identity transformation is what it is. But he provided support, and he got me to a place where I realized, okay, I got it. I'm starting to figure this out. But what's more, he plugged me into the organization's veteran employee group, which was awesome, and that changed everything for me. Was being plugged into a community of other veterans. And that's exactly what I needed, because when we get out, it's not like it is when you're on active duty. You've got your buddies, and everybody kind of speaks the same lingo, and that you've got this shared experience and this shared lifestyle that you just get it. And there are a lot of unspoken commonalities, but as civilians, it just wasn't there. And so he got me plugged into a community, and I realized the importance of that. And what's more, I realized the importance of people having some type of connection when they get out of the military. And so I decided I was going to begin building veteran talent programs within organizations and providing that type of support. Got plugged in with a couple nonprofits, just coaching one-on-one individuals that were leaving the military. Built a few veteran recruiting training programs for different consulting firms, and trained up all of their people on how to do it. Built in internal veteran employee groups for some different companies, and just have since then been working in supporting veteran transition in some way or another. Because the fact is, it's not something that governments are very good at, is supporting their individuals when they're no longer using them anymore. So when we've outlived our usefulness and we kick off the boots and they give us our marching orders to go ahead and go off and be a civilian, they're really pretty much done with us. And, they may give us some support from Veterans Affairs. They may give us some counseling support and so forth and so on. But at least in the U.S., our Department of Veterans Affairs is notoriously bad at supporting veterans. Now, there are some, of course, internally, some individuals within that system that want to do good, and many of them are veterans, but they're run by a system that is deeply flawed and is just wholly ineffective for the most part. And so I realized that if anybody's going to take care of veterans, it's got to be us, and we can't be encumbered by these behemoths of these systems that have no vested interest in really taking care of us. So that's something that I dedicated myself from the time that I got out up until even now today. And so, yeah, that's essentially how my transition went. And I've been involved with that with supporting veterans transitioning from the military since then. And that was about 11 years ago that I got out. And it's fascinating because we can work so hard, and we can pour ourselves into providing this type of support, but at the same time, something that I've experienced throughout again and again and again is that there's still something missing when we're bringing individuals out. And even you can have a community of veterans that have arms wide open saying, hey, come on, we got you, let's get you plugged in. But there's always something, there's a common element that's been missing during the last 11 years that I've been doing this, and that has been being able to help service members find a mission that truly is connected to a purpose, a real purpose. Because when we're in the military, we know that what we're doing matters because we see it. We can see the results of it. The proof of work is there. We know when we've executed a mission, we know it was done or it wasn't done, and we've got it. And if it wasn't done, we do an after action review, we figure out what we need to change, and then we go forth, execute, do it again, get it right, or adjust our strategy. But that element was something that was missing. And I didn't realize how much it was missing. But the fact is, even individuals that I would coach and guide through their transition into their civilian identity, every once in a while, one of them would fall through the cracks, and they'd drop off the radar, and I wouldn't hear from them for a while, and then see a post on social media or something that they had taken their life. And you're left with this feeling of, well, what more can we possibly do? I was with this guy, from before the time he got out all the way up until, 9 months after, he's a civilian. And then, it still happens, and it happens a lot. We're losing the number that everyone seems to agree on is around 22 a day. Service members are taking their lives. But I've been doing a little bit of digging and a little bit of research, and have found that the number is closer to 40 a day veterans in the U.S. that we lose, either to suicide, instant suicide, or as a result of what I call slow suicide, which is things like substance abuse or a reckless lifestyle that leads to conditions that end up resulting in their death. Although, while not instant, it's still intentional. So we're losing way too many. And so that connection with a purpose-driven mission that's the key element. That's the factor right there. We focus so long on jobs. Okay, there are so many companies and businesses and nonprofits. I mean, there's thousands of them literally that focus on getting veterans jobs. Let's get them jobs and you'll be fine. Just put you to work. You'll be okay. That's not the case. Okay, for some, yes, that's great and good for them. But for others, yes, we all need to have a vocation. Yes, we all need income. We all need revenue. But at the same time, if there's no purpose behind it, and if there's no community to be found, and if there's no mission, then they're going to struggle. Then they're going to tailspin, and then negative things tend to happen. And so that is what has led me to where I am now. And that's really a big part of what led me into being so, I guess, taken by the Bitcoin mission when I realized what it is and the potential that it has.
Okay, so let's get to the Bitcoin. There's a lot in there, from the personal to the professional to the broader community. I want to drill down a little bit on this issue of purpose, because you're clearly implying or saying that lack of purpose is part of the issue that's causing these immediate or slow suicide rates. So help me understand that further. There's a quote that comes to mind. Many people have read the book Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And in there, he quotes, I think it's Friedrich Nietzsche, which is, he who has a why to live can bear almost any how.
Mm-hmm.
So this issue of purpose is clearly core to us as human beings. And the reason that gets quoted so much in Frankl's book is because he was fundamentally saying that those people in concentration camp who had a greater purpose to live for, who needed to get out, who weren't going to give up. And I mean, that's not to say that that was the deciding factor. You know, plenty of people with purpose died anyway. But of those who were just physically surviving, some gave up in spirit and some had something that they desperately needed to hang on for. So help me understand, A, is that the primary issue for that's transitioning into civilian life? What is it that's eating away at them, that's causing such inner turmoil that they would go down the path of self-destruction, fast or slow?
It's a really good question. And it's fascinating to me. A quick side note that you brought up that book, Man's Search for Meaning. When we were deployed in Iraq, my sergeant gave me a copy of that book. And I give away more copies of that book than any other book. Still, even now that I've discovered Bitcoin, because I do believe that it all ties in together. And I believe there are so many universal truths in Frankl's book that end up manifesting themselves in Bitcoin. So it's fascinating, and you're exactly right. And yes, it's a big part of the inner turmoil, of the inner journey, we'll call it, that many veterans go through, in my experience. Okay, now of course every person is an individual, and you will meet plenty that it's just they haven't had an issue and they go ahead and they're like, yeah, I was in the military and now I'm out, good to go. That's fine, that's good. But many do struggle with the adoption of their civilian identity. The military is really, really good at taking individuals and really transforming them into something else. I mean, there's a lot of psychology in there, and there's a militarization process that begins in basic training, and a lot of it is the shock factor with all the screaming and the drill sergeants and the physical and the mental exhaustion, especially when you start to look at the special forces groups. There's a lot of that, and what happens is they break you down, and then they build you back up. Okay, and for some it's more effective than others. Some want it more than others. Some are resistant, but that's the overall goal. And so there's a process that takes place over the course of weeks and weeks and weeks, months and months and months, depending on the different jobs. And so we are literally transformed into somebody else. We take on a new identity, and of course we retain our core identity, but we become a different role in life and a role in a different environment, and it becomes our identity in many, many ways. Now, when we get out, the transition process is very brief. Okay, it's very brief. There's I think the latest iteration is it's about a week-long process that you really have to go and sit in a class, and they teach you how to do resumes, and they're trying to improve it. They're trying to improve it, which is great. It's not because they want to do good things. It's because there's so much demand for it, because people are tired of the lack of results and the poor performance of the programs. But it's a very brief snapshot of basically no preparation to reverse that militarization process, which was then, of course, solidified by years of service. And then at the end, it's like, I think of it as somebody who's acting in a play. Okay, when an actor goes on stage, they've studied the lines, they know the part, they've done their research, and they get into character. Okay, so they get into character, and then they get on the stage and they do their act, and they do their part, and they do their lines, and they act out all of their scenes. And then when they're done, the curtain closes, everybody claps. There's a ceremonious element to it. They go backstage, they take off the makeup, they take off the costume, they get out of character, and they transition back into what they were before. Well, the military is really good at getting people into character, but not into getting them out of character. And so it stays stuck. And so that costume, that internal costume that's a part of their personality now, it kind of gets stuck on them, and they're not sure how to get that off because they didn't put it on themselves. And so they don't know how to take it off. And so that identity transformation isn't really taking place. So we give them a week and say, okay, we took months and years of shaping you into something. Now you are this thing. Get on out there and be a civilian and try to interact with the civilian world. It doesn't work out. It doesn't work out very well at all. So many of them struggle on that front. In addition to that, when you couple it with feeling like you're a part of something, knowing that you're an integrated element in a larger environment that is connected to a larger mission that has a clear sense of purpose, and then getting out in the civilian world where that doesn't exist. And then you take away that element of you're part of a team of people who have each other's back, who are looking out for each other. That's gone too. So you're a lone gun and you're out there just kind of trying to make it. And even when we try to interact with each other, it's still challenging because each person is going through their own challenges. Now, I will say that the ones that do the best are the ones that find, again, some sort of community, specifically of other veterans. And there are some nonprofits out there that are pretty good at this. I'm not going to drop their names or anything, but we can Google it and find them. But there are some that are pretty good. And the ones that are doing the best at it are involved in things like disaster relief or physical education efforts meant to improve and maintain the physical health of the veterans, but also their communities. And so those are the ones that are really doing the best at this. But there's something else that I've discovered, and this is from my own experiences, and this is from talking to the veterans that I've worked with over the years, is that many carry things with them that not only are they unsure how to unpack, how to navigate, how to make sense of, but they're not just quite sure how to move on from the things that perhaps they had done in times of combat, under duress, in extreme situations. Okay, things that normal humans would never do on a normal day. Things that, when you're growing up as a kid, while we might play games, you never really think that you're going to actually have to do things, especially that result in the loss of life, especially that may result in the loss of innocent life. But those things happen, and so we have a lot of people walking around, and they have this sense of embitterment towards governments that have used them and tossed them out. In addition to that, there's an oath that we all take when we join the military, and that oath for most of us goes unfulfilled. We take an oath to support things and to defend things and to protect things, and many of us know on our way out that that's not actually what we did. That what we did was not something that was truly honorable, and that what we did was not something that was truly supporting ideals and values that we went into the military seeking to support. And I'll tell you that the greatest reward I think that many of us experience is just being able to look out for our buddies while we're in there, being able to look out for our fellow soldiers or shipmates or Marines or airmen. And that's just how it works. And that is the greatest takeaway, is that teamwork. But still, many of us come out and there's this sense of unfulfillment. There's a sense of almost like a need for atonement. for the things that we had done in the name of agendas that are unwholesome. I'm just going to put it like that. But so many of us walk around carrying those weights, and the community helps because at least we can have conversations with people that can relate. We can have conversations with people that may be going through the same things. But at the same time, I haven't seen anything that compares to what Bitcoin can do when it comes to plugging people into a mission. And I've been involved, like I said, with different veteran support programs for years now. And it was when I really started to seek out the veteran community within the Bitcoin ecosystem that I found that next level. That I found that not only do we have veterans that are looking out for each other like we tend to do, but we have veterans that are looking out for each other that are connected to a larger mission. And it's an important mission. And it's, I would even say, probably the most important mission of all of our lives. And so that's one of those things that, obviously motivates me to do what I do now.
So I'm going to be guessing a little bit here, and what I'm going to ask for is your verification or otherwise. So you've talked about your own, or alluded to your own disillusionment journey. You became less and less convinced that you were doing the right thing for the right reasons, and that the institution, as it were, was doing the right thing for the right reasons. You're saying that that's a journey really that most veterans go through, or that most people in the armed services go through, is that there comes a slow or maybe sudden realization that perhaps what we're doing is not aligned with what I imagined I would be doing, or the intentions of that. So can you talk me through yours, or generically other people's journey with that? Does that get talked about within, whilst you're still in the army, whilst you're still in the armed services, whichever are? And then I'm going to link back, as you already are, to Bitcoin, because I guess I'm wondering to what degree you understand broken money to be a part of the reason why the Army's intentions are so corrupted from those that are stated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great questions. My own journey within the military was, again, I was 27 when I joined. I was the oldest. I was the oldest recruit in my basic training class, if you will. And I mean, to think back on it now, 27, that to me, that's a kid. But I was, they called me things like grandpa and all that in basic training. And, it was all fun and games, obviously. And the drill sergeants, when they realized how old I was, they were like, what the heck? We're the same age, man. What's wrong with you? What are you doing here? But, so I wasn't a kid. I went in and I had already, my eyes were already open to a certain degree on the nature of the initiatives that the government takes on. And I really went in with the mindset of, I want to go in and see what I can do. It's specifically if I can look out for some other people, specifically if I can go in and if I can help other individuals and just, be a part of something. And again, humans are really good at justifying things. And I thought, okay, well, maybe I can just kind of go in here and I can justify being a part of this machine if I can just go in and maybe make a difference, in my own little sphere of influence right here. So maybe I can just be good and make some good things happen. And I tried. But I'll tell you, my first deployment it was not a combat deployment. I went to Korea first. And so it's in a high tension area, but it's not, we're not in active combat there. So that was my first exposure overseas. But during that time, I interacted heavily with people that had, that had already gone out to Afghanistan, and some that had gone out to Iraq, and had begun to learn really, from boots on the ground perspective, the things that were going on and the things that were taking place. Again, not a lot of it was hugely shocking. I wasn't a kid. I already, knew, war is hell, as they say, and bad things happen. But the more I realized the part that I was playing in it, and the some of the people that were in my spheres, their perception of it and their views on it and their, I guess, naivety on some certain things I took some of it as a challenge sometimes and wanted to talk to them and help them, but I also didn't want to impact their morale negatively, because they wanted to, some of them were gung-ho and they wanted to go and they wanted to do some awesome things. And, for some of them, I would say, well, tell me how this is really, helping. I mean, some people say, I want to go out here and I want to shoot, these bad guys and, use derogatory terms and things of that nature. And I would say, well, why? What's going to happen? What are you really going to do when you're confronted with this situation? And some of them, people like to talk tough and whatnot. But it was interesting, especially upon deploying to Iraq, and especially interacting with some of the local nationals, to really discover and to see that, for the most part, they're just people, and they're like any other people. They're like people that you could meet anywhere else in the world. They have people that love them. They have families. They have kids. Many of the people that we met out there, I mean, they just wanted to get enough food to bring home that night for dinner. They wanted to find a way to get a steady income. They wanted their kids to get an education. And they really they wanted good things in life. And they didn't want us there. They didn't want Al-Qaeda there. They didn't want any of the war going on. They just wanted to have a life. And we had a guy, there was a guard detail that I had where we would bring in local nationals. We bring in our Iraqi locals onto our installation, and they would come on and they would do maintenance and just doing manual labor around the installation, and they got paid really good money. So it was a good opportunity for them. And every once in a while, one of the normal guys in the group wouldn't show up for work, and they would stop coming. And usually what happened was, the first couple of times I would ask, hey, where's so-and-so? And I'd ask one of his buddies, hey, where's so-and-so, man? Where'd he go? And they're like, I don't know. Nobody's heard from him. And then come to find out, they got a hold of him, and he had to go and drive a vehicle into a gate and explode it, or put on a suicide vest, and he had to go and, basically take his own life in an effort to harm the U.S. troops. And they do these things because their families are threatened, and if they don't do it, then the consequences are horrible. So they really leave them no choice. And so there are a good number of people that are doing these things because they have to. And so it kind of changes your perspective on the nature of the war, and whether or not we're a stabilizing force or more of a damaging presence in the overall effort. And then you have to ask why. And then I began to ask the questions, okay, who's really making all the money here? Because that's usually what it comes down to. And my role, while we were deployed there, was I was a logistician, and so logisticians, they manage and track and strategize the planning and the shipping and receiving and the distribution of everything, of all this stuff. Okay, so whether it's weapons, bullets, ammunition, or if it's food or bandages or anything else, that's what we do. And these are very high dollar items, and they're being transported from all over the world, and they're coming to us, and they're being replaced. And sometimes we replace them whether or not they need to be replaced, and there are weird orders that come down. I'm not going to go too far down that road, but it's evident that there's a lot of money that's being spent, and that this is, there's a huge operation out there that is involving the exchanging of funds on a very high level in very large quantities that that people like me are a part of, and we're basically running the shipping and the distribution and the supply chain for this store of these goods that are being exchanged. And that's really the driving force behind it, which is something that finally clicked for me one day. Was this is all about the money. There's nothing about freedom that's happening here. We're not freeing anyone. They don't want us to free them. They just want us to leave. And so that kept on sticking with me. And it's a conversation that I had with some of my NCOs out there. And, most of the time they would just kind of shut it down and say, no, just don't worry about it, man. Just come on, do your job. Don't sweat it. Just stop. It's above your pay grade, as they say. Just do the dang thing. They can go home, get a promotion, and retire one day and just be happy with it. And don't worry about it. There's nothing you can do about it. Okay. Do your job. If you don't do it, they'll move you out and somebody else will come in and they'll do it. So when I got out of the frontline type of units and then started recruiting, especially again, I mean, that's when it really just became glaringly, just too much to even be able to stomach. You see the news a little bit differently. When, for me at least, the news just hit me a little bit differently when I would send, a 17, 18-year-old kid from the local high school out to, join the military, and then hear, from their mom on Facebook or something that, hey, Richie is going to Iraq next week. We're so excited. And it's just, you start to hear about these things, and then these guys are getting injured. I live in a really small town, and we lost a guy. I did not put this Marine in. He joined the Marines, and he lost his life out there. And it's like I said, it's a very small town. It's one of those situations where it hit everybody. Everybody was just, everybody felt it. And, we have a monument downtown set up to him in the town square. And it was a very impactful experience for everybody. And there was a moment that I remember, and I'm not going to talk about what the specific conflict was, but there was a conflict that we were becoming involved in overseas. And the language on the television was the exact same language that I heard when we were gearing up to go into Iraq. And it was the exact same garbage and the exact same lie and the biggest bag of propaganda being dumped out on the table in front of everyone, and we were expected to eat it up. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I remember walking to I grabbed my wife and we walked to another part of the house, and I started talking about it, and I said, "Can you believe that this is happening again? This is ridiculous. This is just like when they did this." And it was, she was like, "Okay, well, what are you going to do?" And I said, "I can't be a part of this anymore. I can't do this anymore. Even though I'm not over there now, I can't send people over there to be a part of this anymore. And I'm not going to be able to recruit people effectively at all, because not only can I just try to find the best ones and put them in, but I can't, with a good conscience, tell people anymore that, hey, look, yeah, you can make a difference in here." Because I reached a point where I didn't believe that it was true anymore, that it doesn't matter what you do. You can go ahead and you can try, but you're just going to end up the same as everybody else. You're going to go in there and you might have big visions and you might have some aspirations to go in to change some things. But when they're done with you and the curtain drops and nobody's clapping and they kick you off the stage, you're going to experience what everybody else has experienced before you. So that time came where I wasn't going to do it anymore. And that was the end of that.
Tough journey. So, how many people do you think come to that realization, and how long does it take them to get there?
From my experience, I think at least lately, most of us are coming to these realizations. It's just when you have something happen like what happened over the course of 20 years with Afghanistan, with Iraq, when we gave up Iraq, and I don't want to get too political about anything, but when we gave up Iraq, and I watched on television the enemy, as it were, when I watched them going in and taking over where we were, our area of operations where we were, knowing that, okay, I gave up a year of my life there. My buddies gave up a year of their lives there. Some of my buddies, some of the people in our unit gave up their lives there. For them to just come back and, and then we give it up and say, okay, well, that's great. Thanks for your service. But what you did here doesn't matter. And then with Afghanistan, it's to me, I believe it's virtually impossible, or someone has to be extremely good at self-deluding to not see that as a total debacle. And the moral injury alone that people have experienced, we lost thousands of lives. We lost thousands of soldiers in Afghanistan. And at the end of the day, there really was no return on that sacrifice. It was just done and over, and then we gave it up. That alone, I believe, has changed the perspective and has altered the perception that many people have over our involvement. I mean, let's take a look at the recruiting numbers right now. It's terrible. Okay, recruiters cannot find people to join the military. They've even gone so, I mean, it doesn't help that they kicked out a lot of great people who were unwilling to receive the COVID vaccine in taking adverse action against them and giving them a dishonorable discharge. Now they have they've backpedaled on that, and they're now accepting them to come back in if they would like to come in. They're removing that adverse action. It's a pretty new announcement. I think a couple weeks ago it came out, but they're taking them back in because they can't find people, and it's not a very good situation when you are getting involved in multiple military conflicts overseas and you don't have enough people to send over there because you've hollowed out your core of leadership, and now people are on to you and they won't join your force anymore. So that's the situation that we're in. So those things alone, in addition to my own experiences and the people that I interact with, those facts alone, that we can't find people to join, that tells me that people are beginning to wake up to it, and they're recognizing that this is not something that they want to be affiliated with. And it's shameful. It really is unfortunate, because I do believe that the military is something that could be a realistic option for many people, and it should be something that people can approach with honor, and that they can go and they can serve their nation and be a part of something bigger than themselves in defense of their country. But we have not been a defensive force in a long, long time. And we are more about expedition now. We are more about power projection. We are more about other things than defending our own nation. And people know that. And I believe that it's beginning to manifest itself in the reality that our military is finding itself in now.
This episode of Bitcoin People proudly brought to you by BitRefill, your one-stop shop for living on Bitcoin and Lightning and building out the Bitcoin economy and this Bitcoin world we would all love to see come to fruition. They've got all the best gift cards like Amazon, Apple, Bunnings, Airbnb, Uber, and much more. They've got Coles and Woolies for your groceries, Bill Fairies to pay your bills, BP and Ampol for your petrol. You can do your hotel bookings or top up your phone credit or buy a gift or phone credit for a friend or loved one overseas. So check them out today, bitrefill.com, and remember to put Bitcoin People in the referral code for 10% Bitcoin back on your first purchase.
Indeed. Okay. So you started to go down the money path and you realized that money was a big part of what was going on, or perhaps ultimately the only part. And so you had your suspicions around that. You were seeing that from the inside. You get out. By this stage, I'm assuming you haven't heard of Bitcoin. That comes later. So tell me about that part of your journey. You're doing this work with veterans. You're supporting them. You're trying to find mission and community.
Uh-huh.
Take me down your rabbit hole, your orange hole, and the process of understanding. You've already understood money at one level in relation to the military. How did your Bitcoin journey tie in with that and your background understand that's money in the military?
Yeah. Good question. So many of us when we're getting out. Like I said, it's so much of it is about job. It's about let's support veterans by giving them a job. And there are some nonprofits and there are some companies and some employers that are pretty effective at that. They're still ironing out how to retain them once they get them positions. And again, some are doing all right, most are not. But the emphasis has been on jobs. Again, which is good. People need employment. People need to be busy. People need to do things. We need to work. And we also need to keep the lights on. We need to keep the water flowing, and we got to keep food in our families' bellies. But at the same time, it's not enough, and it's not truly effective. And what I've learned is that we have many service members who leave active duty, and they come out and they'll take whatever job they can get because they've got to pay the bills. And so they become dependent upon an income that many times that is insufficient, first of all. And then they may or may not apply for disability. In the U.S., we have disability compensation that is available for some veterans that many apply for. Many don't, because there's a stigma attached to it for many of us, where we don't want to be labeled as having a disability. We're not comfortable with classifying ourselves as a disabled veteran. There's a thing in there. There's a certain perspective or a certain perception of that is just some of us don't. Some of us have a hard time navigating over that and through it. But we become reliant upon insufficient amounts of revenue, taking whatever jobs we can get. And there are many companies out there that truly do take advantage of us. It's really a travesty. But we find ourselves engaging and being a part of this system, which many times is going to lead to taking on debt. It's going to lead to, for those that file disability, being reliant upon disability payments that are coming from a government that is clearly debasing our monetary system and making things worse and worse. But at the same time, there are minimal adjustments to the disability compensation that we receive, and of course the underpaid employers that are out there don't keep up with, nobody is able to keep up with inflation these days. And so wages and inflation, there's a gap, obviously, because how can you keep up with something like that, especially when you're hoping that it's going to return, and they don't want to get caught with the increase in their wages to a certain point and then have the inflation decrease, which obviously we know that's not going to happen, but they don't want to be caught with their knickers down when that happens. And so so many of us are finding ourselves in that situation where the income is insufficient, and the disability, if we even file for it, isn't much. But the problem is also that many of us don't want to have that dependence on a government that has provided a negative experience for us. And then when we get out, to still feel like, okay, well, I'm going to get my disability check, and I need that so I can live, and so I'm still kind of living off the government till, even though they're jerks, and even though I hate them for what they did and all this stuff, we still have to receive money from them, and so it feels kind of dirty. Okay, many of us are able to move past that and say, you know what, that's fine. If you want to go ahead and pay me, you can go ahead and pay me for my messed up knees, or for my missing hand, or whatever the case may be, or my mental struggles. But there are many that don't want to be dependent on that. And so when you couple that with the reluctance that many industries and organizations have with hiring veterans and providing suitable employment for them, plus an apprehension to accepting government funds in the form of disability, you find many veterans are out there and they're struggling with their finances. Again, this isn't something that we're prepared for on our way out. When we're in active duty, there's nothing that happens that is preparing us for that transition to know about money, even what it is and how it actually works, while we're in active duty. much less after we get out. And so there's not a period of preparation that is going to occur to teach us how to navigate that. And so we're out there with it, along with the rest of the changes that happened during separation from the military, out there also struggling financially, which again, Bitcoin is, I mean, you know how it goes. It always comes back to Bitcoin. And that's one of the things that actually stood out to me the most when I began to dive more into it, was that Bitcoin is a doorway for them to opt out of either one of those situations, either underemployment with an industry or an organization that doesn't recognize their true talent and capabilities. There's an option for them to walk away from that. In addition, there's that option to not have to be as reliant on disability compensation or any other type of compensation from the government. And so what this does is it's a pathway to freedom. So it's a pathway to sovereignty. It's a pathway to self-reliance for individuals that truly value that sort of thing. And then when you couple that with, it's an opportunity to engage in a mission with other individuals that are purpose-driven, I mean, to me, it's just the perfect combination. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now, because once that connection was made, and once I recognized that, I had to act. And so that's what I've been doing, and that's why I am where I am.
Beautiful. So talk me through Operation Bitcoin. Tell me about its origin story, and tell me where it's at now, and tell me what you're focused on and what people are doing and how they're involved. Tell me everything.
Sure. Thanks for asking. All right. So yeah, I mean, I'm relatively newer to being being involved in Bitcoin at the degree that I am. It's not that I heard about it and I said, well, Bitcoin's the worst thing I'm not going to do, but I heard about it, and every time that it would come up in conversation, or I'd see something in the news, there's always something going on, whether it was in COVID. I was conducting training programs heavily in the healthcare industry when all that was going on. And so that was my focus. And so I would hear about it, and I kind of just chalked it up as something that was going to make a few people very rich, and a bunch of other people were going to get ripped off. And that was pretty much what it was going to come down to. So it's like, okay, that's neat. Okay, cool. Internet money. That's really cool. We live in the future. That's fantastic. Somebody's going to get rich. It's probably not going to be me. So let's drive on and let's go ahead and do this thing. And I'm definitely not going to be one of these people that's going to get ripped off. And so I just kind of, kept letting it go. It kept popping up on my radar. It kept showing up in conversations. And I noticed, okay, this isn't going away. It just, it's not dying. Okay. And every time they say it's dead, there it is. It's back again. And so it was actually my father began to bring it up in conversation, and he began to study it, and he began to share with me what he was learning. I was like, all right, Dad, that's pretty neat. And he's, like I said, he's a salty old Vietnam vet, but he's a brilliant guy. And so I kind of said, okay, you know what? I'm going to listen. And he basically eventually had to hold me down, and was pouring Bitcoin in my ear, and the light finally came on. And I was like, Dad, this is more than what I thought it was. He's like, yeah. And I was like, no, this is actually money. And he's like, yeah, son, it's actually money. It is. I mean, look at this. We got this. And then it's like, yeah. And I was like, wait a minute. This is more than money. This is actually about freedom. And he's like, yeah, that's what I've been trying to tell you. And so I finally got it. And you know how it goes. Once that light comes on, you can't turn it off. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And very quickly, I realized, okay, this is a mission. There's a purpose here. And I mean, for myself, that, like I said, that had been something that I was struggling with, is, how am I really supporting veterans on their transition out? I mean, if we're still losing them, if it's not successful, if we're still having problems here, am I really doing the best that I can in helping them? Because I feel called to serve them. But I recognized very quickly that this is a mission that every veteran can be a part of. This is that purpose, and this is that community that can make a difference in their lives, that can help them to find that sense of purpose and even that sense of atonement that we talked about earlier, that many of them are seeking. And what's more, that oath that we took when we joined the military, when we put our hand up in the air and we swore an oath to something bigger than ourselves, and that oath went unfulfilled, this is an opportunity to fulfill that oath that we took to our fellow people, to our brothers and our sisters, and to everybody. This is that opportunity. And so from that moment, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. And so I started just searching for people in there that had the word Bitcoin in their profile. And it was really, I didn't know where to start. So I just typed in Bitcoin, and then I found you can categorize people by the different types of companies that they worked at. And so I selected everybody that was in any branch of the military at any point in their lives, and people started popping up. And I was like, wow, this is cool. There's already veterans that are doing this. This is neat. And got connected with, I mean, first of all, people were just responding quickly, and I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I just sent out messages and said, hey, look, I'm new to Bitcoin. I'm a veteran. I'm looking for other veterans who know stuff about Bitcoin and want to talk to me about it. And people were like, yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, what do you want to talk about? And they just started reacting and responding to me, and these conversations started happening. And one of the first people that I connected with was a gentleman by the name of Andrew Howard. Andrew is he was in the Marine Corps, and we just hit it off. We got on a Zoom call, and we just started going down the road, and we started talking about the implications of freedom. And we talked about sovereignty and, veterans. I mean, it was like I wasn't the only one that was thinking this, and it was like, this is it. And so then, he, how it goes. I mean, he opened up the door to other introductions with other individuals, got me plugged in with Alex Stanzik and Shane Hazel, which led to being introduced to Mike Hobart and Jordan Gamrell. And so that community just happened almost instantly. And then I found myself, I was like, I'm jumping in. And this was early this year. And so I said, I'm jumping in, I'm going down to Miami. One of the big conference was going on down there. So I went down to Miami. I started meeting people in person, met Alex, met Shane, and it was just awesome. And then come to find out, they had been having conversations about starting up a podcast. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm pretty new to this, guys. I mean, I'm studying my brains out, man. And I'm like, it's like the Matrix where they plug the thing into your head. And I was just just like pouring Bitcoin stuff in there constantly. But so we got started, and the 5 of us, in June, we launched a podcast called Bitcoin Veterans. And we've created communities in different chat platforms. And I'm not going to go too far into the details of what they are for security purposes, but we've created a community. I'm not going to even say we have created a community, but a community of people has come together and become its own source of gravity that is now drawing other veterans into it. And there are hundreds and hundreds of us at this point, and we have multiple chat groups that are built around different regions around the country. We actually just recently opened up a worldwide chat group, and they just keep showing up. And we're sending out signal, and we're putting out a call, and we're inviting them to come and be a part of this mission. And it's fascinating how fast it's growing, and how many people are just jumping into the mission. And these aren't people that just want to show up and hang out and chat a little bit. I'm talking about people that are arriving with their toolboxes with them and their skills, and they're ready to get to work. And we've got people that are just joining in and just making it happen. It's amazing. I do want to do a plug. We're on Twitter, Bitcoin Veterans. Check it out. We're the only ones there. And the podcast streams live because we like to live dangerously. And streams live every Wednesday night at 7 Eastern U.S. time. So check it out. It's on YouTube and Twitter Spaces. But so we kicked that off. And with my background being in training and education, it just made sense to me that that I should go forth and find ways to educate veterans and orange pill them and bring them onto the mission, ones that weren't already there, because the ones that we're attracting right now, they're already involved in Bitcoin in some way or another. Many, we're all in different places in our journey, but there are so many of us out there that don't even know about this mission, that need this mission. And at the same time, I believe that the Bitcoin mission needs these veterans as well. And so my goal is to design an education program to bring them in. And so Scott Lindbergh is another individual, another veteran that I became, that I was introduced to. And he was instrumental in connecting me with Me Premier Bitcoin, which is based down in El Salvador, which is a Bitcoin education program. They have a Bitcoin diploma that they offer to kids in school down there, and they're global at this point. They're well beyond El Salvador, and what they have done is they have started out with thematic nodes. They function on nodes, and so they have thematic nodes that are basically they function. And the groups of individuals that are going to the program in these nodes, they are instead of being kids that are all a part of one school or one age group, it's people that have shared life experiences or commonalities like military veterans. And so we're actually the first thematic node with Me Premier Bitcoin. Operation Bitcoin is our name, and we are the first ones that are functioning on that thematic, using that thematic model. And I want to tell you that the folks at Me Premier Bitcoin they're completely open source with everything that they do. John Dennehy and Adam Neely they're amazing individuals down there. Had the honor and the privilege of meeting them a few weeks ago at Adopting Bitcoin, and they're just amazing. And they're in this for the most wholesome and pure reasons imaginable. And they literally, their plan is to change the world through Bitcoin education. And so they have said, here, this is our curriculum, modify it, tailor it to military veterans, which is exactly what I'm doing. And they've been extremely and totally supportive of this. So it's been amazing. Now, and again, yes, I do want to give a shout out to my dad. He is involved, heavily involved in Operation Bitcoin. He's a writer. He loves to write. He is running our Substack right now. He's pumping articles out there, and he's a good writer. He's entertaining, and he's like I said, he's a smart guy. So he's putting content out.
The Love and Bitcoin article his?
What's that?
The Love and Bitcoin article recently went
up.
Yes,
that's right. Love and Bitcoin. That was him. So yeah, I'm glad you checked it out. It's really good, really good.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun being on this journey with him. Really, not only is my dad, but also just both being veterans and having that shared experience and having that commonality that's beyond family. It's just a really it's an amazing experience, and it's priceless, and I'm enjoying it. So it's really cool. But so with back to Operation Bitcoin, the focus initially was for us to focus on education. Okay. Education. And then it became apparent that there needed to be a little bit more. What are we going to do after we educate and after we orange pill and after we equip veterans with what they need to transact, to buy, to self-custody? What do we do after that? Because we know, I know from dealing with veterans that they're going to say, okay, cool. Thanks for all this cool knowledge and for showing me how to do this. Now, what do I do? Exactly. Now what? Okay, because I've got this information. I'm ready to rock, because that's how we roll. And so the question was, okay, well, now what for us? What do we do? And so what we've done is we were creating a program to connect them with careers. So we have our education, our stage one, which is education, and that's using the Me Premier Bitcoin curriculum as our foundation to educate them on everything they need to know and to earn their own Bitcoin diploma. The next stage two, is to plug them into career opportunities. So we do this through, first of all, building relationships with employers in the Bitcoin space, with supporting the veterans in creating their resumes, creating a proof of work profile for them to share, because that's what many Bitcoin employers need, is some type of a proof of work. And also for individuals who are still in active duty that are approaching their transition date, there is an internship program that is available that we have an application in for us to provide that service. And the way it works is that the service member is still on active duty military while they're performing this internship at the Bitcoin company. So the military is still paying their salary and still taking care of their benefits and everything. So they're still, for all intents and purposes, on active duty. But instead of going to work doing military stuff, they go to work at this Bitcoin company doing Bitcoin stuff. And so at the end of the internship, ideally, they want to work there and the Bitcoin company wants to hire them. And so we've created that bridge to get them across that gap. Still, then there's also that other challenge of, it's hard to find jobs in the Bitcoin space right now. There just aren't as many as there's more of a supply of talent than there are actual job openings. And from the individuals that I talk to that are hiring in the Bitcoin space, when they open up a job position, they get thousands and thousands of applications and resumes that show up in their inbox. And it's way more than they could ever handle. So we said, well, how can we address this? And they came up with the idea, you know what? We need builders. We need people that are going to come in and that are going to build businesses. These businesses are going to contain jobs within them because they need someone to run them. And then what we're going to do is, in effect, create more jobs. So we've got the 3 stages. The first is to educate them. The next is to connect individuals with jobs that currently exist and also cultivate that job marketplace out there in the Bitcoin space, and also help them prepare to recruit and retain veteran talent. And then at the same time, I didn't mention this, but through an incubation program that Operation Bitcoin will provide, we will support veteran business owners in building their Bitcoin businesses. So that is our approach. We are a registered nonprofit organization in the United States. We are pending our 501c3 designation upon final approval of the IRS, and it's been a whirlwind, and we've been running full steam and really pushing this thing forward. But it's one of those things where it's like I said, when you see it, you can't turn it off, and it's not going to go away. And we're compelled to act, and we don't know how to stop at this point. So we're just going to keep on going. The great news is the response from the community, the response from the Bitcoin industry, from a number of Bitcoin employers has been overwhelmingly positive. We have people that are voicing their public support. We have people that are pledging financial support to us. Volunteers showing up out of the woodwork all over the place, which is amazing, because that's what we're going to need to get this off the ground. So we're moving into 2024 with our shoes are on fire and we're running full steam ahead, and it's an amazing time because, like I said, the response from the community has been great. It's been mind blowing, and so we're just going to keep on going, and we're just getting started.
So at one level, you could argue that Department of Veteran Affairs were already trying to supply vets with jobs, and there was already stuff going on to support them with community and purpose. What is it about Bitcoin that is so special as a mission that is supporting vets differently or better than anything else that currently exists?
Mm-hmm. Good question. Bitcoin is the most important mission of our time right now, and I'm not just saying that to sound theatrical or dramatic. We literally are. Corey Clipston, he's the CEO of Swan Bitcoin. He has a saying that we are in a race to avoid the war, and I believe that that's true. I believe that we are approaching a time in our global history of potential severe unrest on multiple levels. And I believe that we are approaching a time of inevitable challenges and difficulty that we are going to experience on some level or another, to some degree. And it may be, kinetic violence in the streets. None of us want that, obviously. It may just be very difficult financial times. We believe that it's going to be a challenge regardless. At the same time, we have a group of individuals that have seen difficult times. We have a group of individuals that have, for many of us, seen combat. We have seen what happens when societies crumble. And we have seen what happens when those in power are irresponsible and destructive in their policies and in the way that they conduct themselves. And for those of us that have seen that, we would do anything to prevent that from happening. And it doesn't mean that we want conflict. We don't want conflict. We believe that Bitcoin provides us with a peaceful revolution. Bitcoin does the fighting. None of us need to. Bitcoin will do that. It's designed to do that. And it will do that. But at the same time, we also need people. We need people that have experienced difficult situations. We need people that possess a certain degree of resilience. And the reality is, in the U.S. alone, there are over 16.5 million U.S. military veterans. And every year, 200,000 more of us join the civilian world, are leaving the military. And that number is very likely going up because people are running out of the military. They won't stay. So there are a lot of us, and that's just in the United States. We are looking for a mission. We're looking for something to get plugged into. And we recognize the mess that our military is, which is an extension of the government, especially those that have been thrust out as a result of the vaccine and the decisions that were made behind that. But this mission is relevant to the veterans that I interact with, and to the ones that hadn't even known what Bitcoin is, to the ones that it's new for. They recognize the importance of it, and they're being attracted to it, and they understand very clearly the importance of this, and it speaks to them. Even the ones that are resistant in the beginning, because people have the mindset of, okay, I mean, some people are just outwardly hostile towards it, but as soon as the conversation moves in the direction of, let's talk about what money actually does. Let's talk about what a society with a sound money is actually capable of. Let's talk about the checks and balances and the accountability that we can build into the actions and the policies that governments choose to undertake when we have sound money in place, when there's a control on the number of units that can exist within that monetary system, when there isn't a printer that is running 24 hours a day, churning out dollars, weakening your purchasing power, weakening your entire society, weakening everyone except for the ones that are first capturing those dollars. And then as it trickles down, it loses its value. But that's the importance that we see behind what we're doing, is communicating this to veterans in a way that's going to be effective, that they can understand and relate to, and helping them to not only understand, okay, this is money. I get it. It's sound money. It's real. It's better than the dollar. It's better than any other money. It's more than just that. It's truly getting them on the mission, because right now we're, as the saying goes, we are so early, right? We are early. The adoption phase is just, I mean, we're at the very beginning of that. And we need as many people that are going to be mission focused as early adopters as we possibly can, because they are going to shape. We early adopters are shaping the rate of adoption, the effectiveness of adoption, and the clarity of communication that's going to take place. So I saw some data recently from a large survey, a Gallup survey that was measuring the trust, and this was in the U.S. That measured the level of trust that individuals have in different institutions of our society. So some of the highest ones up there were like firefighters. People have a lot of trust in firefighters. And people still people still feel a great deal of trust for military personnel, for military members, not the military as an institution, but people still look at service members and feel that they can trust them. And it's for good reason. Okay. There are a lot of just good people, and they know that service members are a part of something bigger, and that they've dedicated their lives to something that is beyond themselves, that there's an element of sacrifice there. And there is in most service members that I talk to, and most veterans that I interact with, they tend to be very sacrificial individuals. I mean, think about it. They were willing to lay their lives down for whatever their original motivation was to join the military, whether it was for college or for just a steady paycheck, or if they just wanted to see the world. They still knew they're laying their life on the line. There's an element of sacrifice that comes along with that. And I think that people recognize that. And so there's a certain degree of trust that comes. So that's why it's important for us to have as many veterans at the front end of this adoption, because veterans are individuals that the general public tends to trust. And so the more the public sees, okay, we have veterans out here that are leading the way with this Bitcoin thing. Okay, and well, we know we can trust them. They're probably good people. And there's that natural tendency, that nature that we have to want to trust them. And so for us to be sharing that message is going to increase the rate of adoption. It's going to open the minds of individuals to trusting the messengers, and then thereby being more apt to trust Bitcoin in general. So that's another reason of importance, and why we believe that this is going to be successful.
I'm conscious of time, and yet I've still got at least 2 other questions. So, and you're good to keep going?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's, the first one is this. Is it an emotional moment for people when they realize that the money printing was the cause of the war, or the extension of the war? How do vets tend to react to that? There's got to be a sort of anger, and they've lost mates.
Yes.
The money printer.
Yes. Yeah. There's you do see some of that. Some of us are more cantankerous than others. Some of us are pretty pissed off, if I can say. But that's actually one of the things that we're very focused on, not only in Operation Bitcoin, but in Bitcoin veterans, in our podcast and in our community group and in our other initiatives. There, we're very aware and very intentional of channeling that energy, because it's justified. We believe that veterans have every right to be upset with the nature of things, especially when they discover the degree. Especially when we discover that, oh my gosh, this thing that I was a part of is even worse than I thought. When you start to read into, Alex Gladstein's work and really start to study and look at, the effect, and especially how we were a part of being the pointy end of the spear that was enforcing a lot of these things. Many of us get upset about it. And many of us spiral out and lash out in unproductive ways, which isn't good for anybody, obviously. So we're very intentional about having those conversations with individuals who are joining this mission, who do want to be a part of this. That, look, I get it. Go ahead. We can be angry about this, but let's channel it. Okay, let's channel this, and let's be positive about it, and let's be solution focused, because it's so easy for us as people, veterans included, once we start complaining about something, it can go down negative roads. It's like, one person will show up and, imagine it's a bunch of people standing around a table, and somebody's like, oh, hey, I got a complaint right here. I'm going to throw it out there on the table and let you all see it. And then this other person's like, oh, I got one of those too. And then it's like this other person's got like a whole bag of them, and then they're dumb, hey, check this out. And then you're just out there, everybody's throwing it around, and it's just a messy food fight full of complaints. But that doesn't help anybody. It's the person that walks in the room and says, wait a minute, check it out. Okay, yes, we have these issues and we have these things. Now let's take them and let's do something with them. Let's channel this energy. Okay, let's find solutions. Let's talk about what we can do instead of just complaining about the way that things are. And that's one of the cool things about the Bitcoin community is it's the same way. So we can, then that's where this huge correlation and total alignment steps in. Is you have people that are that served in the military. They're upset with the way that things are. They're upset when they learn the degree to which they have been used and then cast aside, and then the way that things are continuing to go, regardless of what they did. And then you have Bitcoiners that haven't served in the military that in many ways they see the same things. And they're upset about the same topics and the same issues. And then you get somebody who fits into both of those categories, and then get the community behind them and the get stuff done mentality that exists in general among veterans. It's an amazing thing. And we're seeing it play out in our Bitcoin veterans community. We're seeing it happen. We have people that are starting, I'm not the only one who's doing something with Operation Bitcoin. We have Shane Hazel. He has a nonprofit that called the Brave Mission that is supporting veterans who are experiencing different challenges of different types by taking them through experiential journeys and going out and working through these things. We have Mike Hobart is starting up a private security firm. We have guys that are web designers. We have a guy that I met who is starting up a resort down in El Salvador that is going to be service oriented in every way. And it's just the power and the magnitude of the energy when it is channeled in a way that is productive is astounding. And of course, throughout all of these things, Bitcoin is the one unifying, interwoven element that is driving all of it forward. And it is all here with the intention of increasing mass adoption, of driving hyper-Bitcoinization, of creating this community, and ultimately changing the world. And that's what we're doing, and that's how it's happening. It's humbling. I can tell you what, because I'm surrounded by some high caliber individuals, and it's amazing the term where iron sharpens iron. That's happening. That is happening within our communities. And every single time I have an interaction with one of these amazing people, I walk away from it just boggled at the sheer talent of the people that I'm fortunate enough to spend time with now. It's amazing. It's amazing. And again, we're just getting started, it's almost scary in a way, but it's but there's no other place that I would rather be. This is the mission.
I've just come back from, we have 3 times a year something called a Bitcoin Bush Bash here in Australia, which is out in regional parts of Australia, split across 3 different states. And I'm always so in awe of the intellectual grunt power in that room and so humbled. And I typically keep my mouth shut and I sit and listen because there's astonishing people in this community and it's growing. And this was possibly 2 or 3 times larger than it normally is. The most recent one, which has just taken place this weekend. And it's growing in an enormous rate, and we're going to outgrow these halls, these local community halls and towns very quickly, but with good people, good quality
Outstanding.
People. Tell me just, and I think this started to come through in the answer to the last question anyway, but I'm just going to throw it on because it might trigger some different ideas as well. Do you organize in any way that's similar to the military? Are there military themes that come through in the way that you teach, in the way that you recruit, in the way that you deploy, in the way that you organize as a group?
In some ways, yes. But really, there is not a hierarchy to speak of that is similar to the military. We are very decentralized in nature. And interestingly enough, that is an element that you will find in the military is decentralized command. We believe that each individual has decision-making power, has command execution power, and is equipped to make decisions that need to be made. So, we don't rely too heavily on the military structure beyond the reality and the, I guess, code, if you want to call it that we look out for each other. We've got each other's backs. We're very supportive of one another. We take that seriously, and it's not the kind of thing that we had to spell out or write a charter or a draft for or anything like that. It's just something that we do naturally. It's just something that just occurs. As far as the training is concerned, yes, we will involve a certain degree of hands-on elements to it, which is similar to how the military training is conducted. You show them, you tell them, you show them, you have them do it, and then you debrief and so forth. And so there's a lot of that's going to be involved in from that perspective, just because it's the language and it's the mode of learning that many of us are accustomed to. But again, you find more and more of that going on in the civilian world. So yeah, we don't want to rely too heavily on carrying over elements of the military into the civilian world, because the reality is it's not the structure of the military that really gave us the attributes that we're bringing into the civilian world. It's something else. It's more of the intangibles. It's more of the shared experiences. It's more of the values that I believe that many of us possessed before we went into the military, that were refined by the experience, and not refined by the experience of being misused or I guess cast aside when it was over with, but really the experience of having gone through something that is life altering with other individuals, and then having it be such a common element of our lives after we get out, because it shapes you, it changes you. It's just how it is. And the thing is, we get to choose how it's going to change us. We get to choose if, when we get out, if it's going to change us for the worse, and if we're going to spiral, and if we're going to succumb to negativity, or we get to choose if it's going to change us and transform us into more. And we do that by interacting with one another, with each other. That's how we become more. We elevate each other. We lift the tide and it raises all the boats. We sharpen each other. We become better. But we don't allow it to become too formalized, because that's not what it's about. Okay. There is a structure in place, but the structure is Bitcoin itself. Okay. Bitcoin drives all those things. Okay. Bitcoin is the constant that is doing what Bitcoin does. Behind the scenes, it's always doing what it's doing, and it's always pushing forward. And it's like I said before, Bitcoin does the fighting for us. Bitcoin does the heavy lifting. Our part is to do the human part of the job. Our part is to connect with one another. Our part is to drive the human change of this. Because at the end of the day, it's like I was talking about earlier about the people that I met in Iraq. At the end of the day, we're all just people. And we want peace. We want to love the people that we love and be loved by our families and, the people in our lives. We want to protect the people that we care about. And we want to have peace. But the reality is, we're going to have to go through a transitional period before that happens. But we do believe that it's possible, and we believe that it's worth it. And we believe that, ironically, that warriors are the best people to lead us into that time of peace.
Beautiful way to say it. Gabe, it's been a pleasure and an honor having you on the show. Any final words or places we can find you?
Yes. So we're on Twitter, Operation Bitcoin. If you can just punch it in there, but it's OP_Bitcoin. We do have a website. It's pretty new. It's being built by one of our Bitcoin veterans, which is awesome. Dr. Nikamoto. He's really good. OperationBitcoin.io. We also have a Geyser Fund fundraiser. So go on and check out the Geyser Fund fundraiser site, and just punch in Operation Bitcoin. We are on there, and we're also on LinkedIn. We're beginning to reach out to what we believe is an untapped community of individuals that need to be educated. That just Twitter, in many ways, is somewhat of an echo chamber, and we believe that there are individuals that are still in the matrix, if you will, out there in that realm of LinkedIn that need to hear this message too. So we're out there, and you can find us in there, Operation Bitcoin, search for us. You can find us. And also please be sure to take a look at Bitcoin veterans in all of those same places, and check it out. If you know a veteran, get plugged in, get on the mission. We're here. We have work for you to do. This is the place, this is the community, and this is the mission.
Beautiful. Gabe, thank you so much. Be well.
Thank you.
All the best.
So there isn't the transparency in the traditional markets as there is in Bitcoin. So I'm not sure or convinced yet, although I'm open to this, persuasion, that there could be the same kind of shenanigans in the Bitcoin market because of the transparency that it provides and also the type of network that it is. Like, we demand proof.